Thank you very much, Mr. Sethuraman. Her Excellency, the Executive Vice President of Venezuela, Ms. Delce Rodriguez Gomez, Sunilji, ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, a whole lot of my friends who I see on various tables. And reason is very simple. This is the region I look after as part of my job. So to have friends in the region is not extraordinary, but the extraordinary is the relationship which I share. And that extraordinarity of sharing the relationship also indicates that how close our regions are. And the difficulty of the two regions yet has to be recognized. That I was looking at some numbers, so I'll not go and delve deep into the numbers, but if you look at the world map, and more or less we divide the world into certain regions, 4 major partners that India has in terms of trade business relationship. The Americas, we have about $1 billion+, more than that. Then Asia, similar figure. Europe, similar figure. Africa, similar figure. Why is the Latin American figure $50 million? I think that's the key point when we are handling this conclave, and that is the moot point why each one of us have gathered here to deal with this abnormal figure. And this abnormality of the figure, I would say that $50 million also we have achieved in past 9 years. Earlier it was still less, and the 9 years we've seen greater engagement. But that greater engagement has been more at the level of cultural exchanges, people-to-people ties, education, technology, so on and so forth. But it has to finally translate into trade and commerce. Trade and commerce, why? Because the Honorable Vice President also spoke in her address about the changing dynamics of the present world. So the changing dynamics is going to impact each one of us, or is already impacting each one of us. And when we are battling with the changed features, we have to also recognize the strength, like we do SWOT analysis, the benefits, and also the like-minded people who need to come together. And like-minded, I would say that I would say that there is no other community more like-minded to Indian community than the Latin Americans. We are, when it comes to cultural ties, when it comes to working persona, when it comes to individual relationships, we are far more alike than any other part of the globe. And yet, it is not getting translated. So we need to address the key issues which should be, and which has been the job of this particular conclave. On my side, I will take pride that this conclave has really done well, knowing that 11 dignitaries, very high-level dignitaries from Latin American region have participated, have been here. About one president, President of Guyana, who joined online, 3 prime ministers of St. Grenadines and Bahamas, and also Jamaica, who were online. And I must say that 15 dignitaries, not 11, but 15 dignitaries who were here in person, 270 odd delegates, foreign delegates, 400 captains of Indian industry, 26 countries being present here from the Latin American region, and plus 10 from close by regions. So Latin American Caribbean region has been the closest group when it comes to ethical, social values to India. But going back to my moot point, that certain, whether it's distance, that needs to be addressed, whether not being interested in each other in a business format, that needs to be addressed, availability of finance, that needs to be addressed, having interest in trading with each other, that kind of faith, Because for any relationship to prosper and to progress, understanding the strength of each other is very much important. And in that sense, India today is vying to become the third largest economy of the world. Now, for any region to ignore that fact is something which I would say is not in anybody's interest. And when I look at Latin America and Caribbean region, apart from the cultural, historical, ancient ties, I look at it from the resource point of view. And from resource point of view, it has youth, it has very high natural resources, it has trained manpower. Now, having these pillars of strength with Latin America and Caribbean region, why should India not engage with Latin America, Caribbean region? So both ways, we are both supplementary and complementary in nature, adding to each other's strength, working for each other's prosperity and well-being, and taking the world forward. In the changed dynamics of the globe, as we all see, the world which was initially bipolar in terms of the technical global aspect, the unipolarity to multipolarity, I think it's at a political level, we are watching more and more multipolar world. And in this changed scenario of multipolarity, economies being impacted earlier by COVID-19, the pandemic, and then of course the conflict which is happening in Europe right now. And these two changes have actually showcased to the world that let's work on our strengths with the people who can help each other strengthen each other's position. Like-minded people and countries need to come together. And of course, India being part of G20, and I always have maintained that while India is the fifth largest economy right now, vying to become the third largest economy, we are a country of the South because we also represent 140 million people. And with our strengths, skilled manpower, natural resources, trained and cultured human beings, which is very, very important. Wherever Indians have gone and traveled and been part of any other country, any other society, we've only added positivity to that society, to that system. We've not been on the wrong side of law. We've not engaged in terror activities. We've not tried to tarnish people. And yet, because we are an open democracy, we've constantly been attacked from one way or the other, and we very much recognize those forces. But looking at it and taking it in stride and working well towards attaining the global good, when pandemic happened, knowing that the kind of difficulties India was going through with its large population, whether it was pharmaceutical requirements or it was the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, we shared it with all. And the reason was very simple, that if India prospers, India wants everybody else to prosper together, because that is the principle we live by. Vasudev Kutumbakam. It's not just a sentence. It's the very ethos, the very basis of our relationship, the very basis of our cultural existence. And when we say Vasudev Kutumbakam, it's not just a tagline. Any Indian you would meet, poorest of the poor, you would realize that these are people who welcome others into their homes. These are people who share the best of their resources with others, even at the cost of depriving themselves. Where do you find that quality in human beings? And of course, Latin America and India. We share this quality, and that quality gets to be shared even as countries. And because it gets to be shared as countries, so when India's strength becomes strong, it takes the world along. And when India does well, the world does well. And And I often quote historically, I said we were the most powerful country in the world. We were having a share of global trade ranging from 28 to 32, 35%. We did not attack people. We did not kill people. We did not change regimes. We did not overtake countries. That is who we are. And we all have experience of the other kind, that when any other countries get stronger, they will attack, they will become expansionist, they will try to change people and change them culturally, religiously, every other way. We don't belong to that class. And because we don't belong to that class, I think it's in everybody's interest, it's in the global interest that India does well and does well for the global good. So sharing prosperity, sharing technology, working together is what we have exhibited, and it's in the interest of Latin America and Caribbean region also to work with us. Because if we look at the data potential, we are all supplementary and complementary economies. And because we are supplementary and complementary economies, we do have a challenge. The challenge is of availability of finance. We have challenge in terms of negotiating the distance. We have challenges at the level of tariffs. So I think once we start negotiating on those regions, and I'm very happy that Secretary General of CARICOM also attended this particular conclave. So there's a possibility of having negotiated engagement on trade relationship. And when we do well, we need to take care that the sustainability, the climate change issues get to be addressed the way they need to be addressed. India can showcase its leadership, which we have tried to do in G20, that while we are part of G20, we also became the voice of the voiceless, because we feel that so-called global South and their agenda wasn't getting addressed. And that agenda needs to be addressed, because 3/4 or 2/3 of the humanity, 2/3 of the humanity which is occupying region in global South, or so-called developing countries or not so developed countries, make the greater part of humanity. And that 2/3 population is impacted by all the policy decisions taken by G20. So the policy decisions of G20 have to take into account the concerns of the global South. And India chose to act as a bridge, because we feel we are rightfully placed to act as a bridge, that while we are the 5th largest economy of the world, we also habitate 140 million people. We are a country of the South. We are also the country of the East by our global location, but by our institutions in terms of democracy, law-based order, Supreme Court, politics in terms of legislative assemblies, to states, to union territories, to a constitution. We are a country of the West as well. So we are rightfully placed to act as a bridge. And by bridging the gaps, by negotiating statements, by diplomatically handling things, and war not being an answer to most of the problems in the world, we feel we are rightfully placed to deal with these difficult subjects. And these difficult subjects need to be addressed for global good. If humanity needs to survive, these things have to be addressed. And when we are addressing these subjects, the climate change, we all know the chaos across the globe because of the climate change. So sustainability becomes an issue. And when sustainability becomes an issue, what is the way forward? The historical wrongs of the country for which the globe has been suffering, the 2/3 of the humanity which does not have resources to deal with those changes, further imposition of taxes and things, for first committing the wrong and then imposing taxes. So these things will have to be addressed in coming times in the future. So multilateral engagements, solidifying our voices, bilateral engagements when it comes to trade and commerce, and when it comes to politics and engagements, framing of policy, framing of rules, we need to negotiate more and more and speak in one voice. Because I feel at times speaking in multiple voices before the negotiation is fine, but at the time of negotiations, we should all understand the value of speaking in one voice. Because the value of speaking in one voice can bring in the results that we are all looking up to and looking forward to, and that will help everyone, not just us. It helps the ones who have the resources because they get greater value out of those resources. It helps us because we need those resources which need to be shared further and more and more. And I look at this conclave and this valedictory session, not the end, but the beginning of action. This is a call for action. And this call for action, engagements more and more, will bring the changes that the world and the globe at large is looking forward to, which will bring more peace, shared prosperity, and well-being of the entire humanity and global good. Let trade, like in the past, be the cause of the change, because trade will not only bring business, but bring people and civilizations closer, and people-to-people engagement, exchanges at social level definitely become part of the trade, and let this trading body take over that particular engagement. We are there to support the cause. Thank you very much. Jai Hind. Muchas gracias.